Down, down, down the road, down the witch's road. Come with me, my friend, to glory at the end. Be warned, spoilers ahead. So if you haven't seen Agatha all along, you might want to watch something else instead. Greetings, Legion! So I don't want to hear any more bullshit about comic book adaptations, comic book movies, comic book shows, comic book based media being all the same. Because when Jack Schaefer is involved with the project, you get awesome original stuff. And I said this back when I talked about WandaVision. This breaks the mold of what people expect these projects to be like. So all these folks complaining about this genre being the same is a they're exposing themselves as people who don't actually consume this media. So, and if you don't consume this media, if you don't know it, if you don't understand it, you don't have the right to be running your mouth about it. Anyway, so let's very quickly go through Jack Schaefer's track record with Marvel so far. So she created and wrote WandaVision. She wrote the Black Widow movie, which is one of my favorite Marvel movies. And she created, wrote, and was the showrunner to this show. This show is what she can do when she's fully in charge. So the point that I'm trying to get to is let this woman cook. There was also a great deal of people saying that nobody was going to watch the show. There was even some misguided nincompoop who wrote an article about this, an article that was on a news website. It went up as like, this is going to be one of the least watched shows in Disney Plus history. Nobody's interested in this. And one of my most hated quotes that people use nowadays is, nobody asked for this. Oh, you're making a show about Agatha Harkness? Nobody asked for this. You're making a show about Echo? Nobody asked for this. Guys, nobody asked for The Godfather. Nobody asked for Back to the Future. Nobody asked for Star Wars. All great movies that have reshaped pop culture. Okay? So you have to take chances with quote unquote new things. Now, these are characters and stories that have worked just fine in the comics, by the way, which is what blows my mind that anybody would point at any upcoming project and go, oh, nobody asked for that. Nobody's going to watch that. How do you know? If producers and network executives knew what was going to work and what wasn't, we would never have any flops, okay? But the way that you find hits, the way that you create new franchises, it's by taking chances. And in almost every episode of Agatha All Along, Jack Schaefer takes a chance. She does something completely different. She breaks the mold. She keeps things completely unpredictable. So whether you love this show or hated this show, it kept you engaged all the way through. It was one of the best supernatural mystery shows that I've ever seen. Would I change a few things about it? Sure. Could certain things be a little better? Sure. But a good 95% of it was mind-blowing and brilliant. And I respect Jack Schaefer for what she created here. So one of my few minor complaints, and you guys can file this under meaningless fanboy gripes, is that we didn't get a title sequence. I think a good title sequence, it can be a great service to a series, because the opening title sequence sets the tone and it gets the audience excited for the show. Just recently, Legend of Vox Machina season 3, they completely changed the title sequence because that season had a very somber tone. And so they created a new opening title sequence that fit the very specific tone of season 3, and it was wonderful, and it's one of the best parts of season 3. And I think that Agatha All Along should have had that. I would have loved to have heard the Agatha All Along theme song at least once, maybe during the end credits of the last episode or one of the episodes. But the only episode that got an opening sequence, and it was great, by the way, was the first one where where Agatha was trapped in this self-delusion that she was trapped in a procedural. She was trapped in a detective show. And the whole show was a parody, or an homage, I should say, of The Mayor of Easttown, starring Kate Winslet. Great murder mystery show. But it was called Agnes of Westview. And they did recreation, funny recreation of that intro. So they do a fantastic job with that. And then when she goes back to being Agatha Harkness again, and the story begins, no intro for the rest of the 8 episodes ahead of that. So that was a bit of a bummer for me. It doesn't affect the overall quality of the show. I just love a good intro, and I know that this crew, these creators, could have knocked it out of the park. So, on the subject of music that wasn't there, let's talk about the music that was there. And the binding, the connective tissue of these 9 episodes, this entire show, this entire season, was the Ballad of the Witcher's Road. All the way to the point that all 9 episodes are parts of the lyrics of the song. And each pertain to the particular part of the journey down the Witch's Road. This is one of the best and coolest uses of a song, especially one that was created specifically for the project. And just respect the hell out of the creativity that went into this. So much so that, as most of you are aware, I am somebody that knows a lot about the paranormal and occult myths and things like that. And even I was thinking, man, what is this Witch's Road? Where did this come from? What is this about? Like, why have I never heard of this? And for at least half the show, I thought that it was based on an actual myth. But it isn't. It's something that was 100% created for the show. And it's a tribute to the power of myth. How somebody can start a story years and years and years in the past, and it gets told over time, and the more real it becomes. And that's an example of what happens in the show. That the idea of the Witch's Road is planted in your head, and it takes over your head, and it distracts you from what's really happening, for what Agatha is truly trying to do, from whom Rio actually is, and what Teen is actually trying to achieve. So just brilliant. And if this show has a theme, is perspectives. It is often said that the difference between a hero and a villain is just a matter of perspective. And this show plays with perspectives all the way through. In episode 6, Familiar by Thy Side, we see the events of episode 1, Seeketh Thou the Road. We see the events of episode 1, but from Billy's point of view. We saw episode 1 already, but from Agatha's point of view. Now we see it from Billy's. It is a completely different episode. And it's just brilliant. And of course, we are naturally conditioned to see certain characters as heroes and see certain characters as villains, but there are really no such roles in this show. Everybody is just acting in, or their actions are being informed by their baser instincts. Agatha is a leech. She's a shark. All she wants to do is consume the powers of witches so she can extend her life. Billy just wants answers. He wants answers to what happened to him and where the hell Tommy ended up after the hex collapsed. And Rio, well, she just wants to meet her quota. She just wants to do her job. She's long overdue to complete a certain project, and she wants to close that particular chapter of her eternal life, even if it's painful. Furthermore, this show completely ignores and breaks the mold of how all the Disney Plus Marvel shows go. And I've talked about this before. I even said it in one of my Blockbuster Buster videos that these shows, unfortunately, even though I still like them and enjoy them, as far as the pattern of the show goes, they have become predictable. They start really big, then somewhere in the middle, episodes 4 or 5, there's a big twist that we talk about for a full week, and then the momentum of the show starts to die, and then the ending, even when it's not bad, it is underwhelming. This show throws that completely out the window, and the tone and pacing change fluidly throughout, and there are multiple twists, all of which are just as shocking as the last. Just really well done, where you think you've already seen the most shocking thing in the show, but there's another thing just around the corner. Team turning out to be Billy Maximoff, Rio turning out to be Death. When they lose Mrs. Hart, played by Deborah Jo Rupp. And the biggest one of them all, the road turning out not to be real, the road turning out to be another hex, but this one created by Billy. Just awesome stuff. And I remember watching episode 8 and thinking how everything felt conclusive. Everything felt definitive there, and thinking, what the hell is episode 9 going to be about? And then they throw another twist at us. The road wasn't real. He accidentally created it via his powers. And like, oh, wow, okay, now we have to go back and see it, but knowing that it's fake, that all of that was an illusion. Which gives the show replay value, which is another thing that I think it's missing, not just from the Disney Plus Marvel shows, but from most of the Disney Plus shows. They just don't have a great deal of replay value. You see them, you enjoy them, and you're like, all right, I'm done with this, move on. They're not the type of shows that you see and go, holy crap, I cannot wait to see this again, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, or Gravity Falls, or The Legend of Vox Machina, where you see it, it's like, that was freaking awesome. I can't wait to have the time to spare again so I can watch this again. And this show has that, but so you can experience the show from new perspectives, and how those new perspectives change the meaning of each of the twists, of the shocking twists that you meet along the way. Just brilliant stuff. Even if you didn't like this show, you have to admit it was brilliantly made and executed. I also love how, even though it was called Agatha all along, it was an ensemble show, and they picked some amazing actors, some amazing performers to play these characters that very, very quickly make you fall in love with these characters. even though we're going to lose most of them along the way. But just want to give a shout out, sing praises to this cast: Catherine Hahn, Joe Locke, Aubrey Plaza, Patty LuPone, Sasher Samata, Ali Ann, Deborah Jo Rupp, and of course the best cameo in the season, Evan Peters returns as everybody's favorite guest starring character, Ralph Boner. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Bonerific. Uh, Here's a guy who has an amazing talent for comedy, and it was in full display here, and he completely stole the show in the one episode that he was in, Familiar by Thy Side. Just wonderful to see him again, but this time as the true Ralph Boner. And of course, this show wouldn't work without Catherine Hahn. I remember when it was announced that she was in WandaVision and she was credited as playing a character called Agnes. But every comic book fan with a pulse knew that that was Agatha Harkness. Oh, no, Catherine Hahn is playing Agnes. Yeah, Agnes, right. But she's playing Agatha Harkness, right? It was the worst kept secret in Marvel Studios history. Like, everybody knew exactly who she was playing before they even saw a minute of the show. But the general consensus was that this was a performer that has such a great reputation that even though you knew she wasn't going to play the character like the comics, that they were changing the character. You know, Agatha's an old crone in the comics. This is this beautiful younger woman playing her, and you knew that it wasn't going to be like the comics, but you knew that because Catherine Hahn was attached to it, that she was in charge of that character now, you knew for a fact it was going to be awesome. And it was. She played one of the most diverse, and I want to say antagonist, because she wasn't really the villain. Again, that was another show where everybody was acting based on just their base instincts, or just who they are. With Wanda specifically just responding to grief. So people who argue that Wanda was actually the villain in that scenario, is hard to deny that claim. But it's also difficult to deny that Agatha was just as fault. You know, she's a powerful witch. She could have stopped the hex, but she didn't. She wanted Wanda's powers, and so she took advantage of the situation. And that's what I love about this character. This character has no pretense about being a hero, about being noble. She knows exactly what she is, and she owns that. She's 100% okay with that. Every ounce of potential to be a good person went away the moment that she sadly lost her son. We see a sympathetic antagonist here, very much in the same vein as Batman the Animated Series, where we feel bad for this character that's generally perceived as being evil. Is she evil, or is she just trying to survive? Is she just trying to muffle this undying grief that is inside of her, that has been inside of her for hundreds, possibly 1,000 years? And that moment at the end where she confesses that the reason why she's been running away from death this whole time is because she's afraid of facing her son, because of what she's become. And just powerful writing, powerful performance. On a lighter note, Aubrey Plaza as Lady Death. Excellent choice. For those of you who don't know, Thanos is in love with death, not with killing people, but with the embodiment of death, portrayed by Aubrey Plaza in this show. And in fact, the whole reason he collected the Infinity Stones and erased half the life in the universe was to impress her. And which always seemed so silly, but fascinating, but silly to me in the comics. But after experiencing, I should say, Aubrey Plaza's iteration of death, her portrayal of death in this show, I have to say that I'm starting to get it. So excellent casting. Some people complaining, oh, she should have been in Infinity War. Oh, she should be in the Deadpool movies because in the comics, while Death has no interest in Thanos, she is in love with Deadpool. Um, and that could have potentially been an interesting love triangle between her, Deadpool, and Vanessa. But no, I think those movies work just fine as they are. Would have been interesting? Sure. But those movies work fine on their own, and I think they found a good place for the character in this show. Um, and the fact that she always cut Agatha slack because she loved her. It was beautiful. And the way Agatha, I think Agatha got what, in my opinion, is the best and coolest death out of any character in the MCU so far, where she was like, this has gone on for too long, and you know what? I'm done. I'm done running away from my greatest fear. And she just literally embraces death, kisses her, and gives into her in just the most beautiful sequence of her um, embracing death and meeting her end. And now for the thing that none of us saw coming. Episode 7. Death's Hand in Mine. An episode that completely shifts the focus of the show and gives Agatha and Billy a break. And now the show becomes about Lila Calderu, played by the legendary Patti LuPone, who is one of the most respected and beloved musical theater actors in Broadway. Here, this whole episode, and oh my god, that she hurt her back because she spent an entire episode carrying the show, and she did a fantastic job. And we see her story, her origin, like this could have been a backdoor pilot to her own show, and just beautifully done, of this powerful divination witch that didn't experience time linearly. She experienced time out of order, and how maddening that can be. And that all of a sudden, in this one moment, this one last moment in her life, everything starts to fall into place. All the visions that she has had throughout her life start to have meaning, and she's finally at peace. But at the same time, she realizes that that's because this is the end, and there are no more predictions, there are no more visions. And this episode, and I say this unironically, and I'm not trying to be funny, but this episode was pure cinema. It was cinematic. Just the shot design, the writing, the editing, the non-linear style in which the story was presented, but still understood. Very much in the style of Christopher Nolan. How they never tell you like what time period they're in, where they're at. It just keeps changing, but you're still able to keep up with the story. And like I just said, Patty did an amazing job of leading this one episode and giving the leads a break. And the thing that is even more amazing than this episode was a reaction to it. People were 100% okay with it. It didn't feel awkward. It still felt like the story was being serviced. It didn't feel like freaking Boba Fett, where they just diverged for 2 episodes to suddenly set up the next season of The Mandalorian. And it just felt, it was cool. Those episodes were great, but it felt super awkward. Here, it didn't feel awkward. The story was still transpiring. It was still Agatha's and Billy's story. But all of a sudden, we were again seeing the events, but from a different perspective. Again, the binding theme of the entire show, perspectives, but a perspective that we've never experienced before, and one that was beyond fascinating. So the finale. 2 things. I only have 2 personal gripes about the finale, and they're not that big, but I feel like the climax could have been bigger. At least the confrontation between Agatha, Billy, and Death. That could have been bigger. I was expecting that to just take place throughout all of Westview, but it just took place in Agatha's backyard, or should I say Ralph's backyard. And it just felt like a little, like a mini skirmish. That ended a little too quickly, in my opinion. Furthermore, I know the show does a fantastic job of building the first appearance of Billy as Wiccan, in his full Wiccan form with the costume and all the powers. I'm not a big fan of the character, but the show did such a great job of building up that moment that I was looking forward to it. I really wanted to see it. Really wanted to see that paid off. And so I cannot even imagine what the hell that felt like for people who are hardcore fans of this character. And then we finally get there, and he's only Wiccan for a few minutes. And he gives Agatha her powers back. He gets knocked into the greenhouse. Then Agatha ends it all, and he walks away. And there's that little nod to Wanda when she left Westview, when she was Scarlet Witch and she threw her hood up and flew away. And however, Billy throws his hood up, all cool, and then gets in his mom's minivan and drives away, which felt super awkward. But other than that, I really enjoyed it, and I respect the fact that the show ended with the potential for there to be more, for there to be another season, one where Billy and Agatha's ghost search for Tommy, for whatever happened to Tommy. Where did his essence, his spirit, his soul go? So yeah, definitely down for that, for Wiccan and a witch's ghost to go looking for Tommy Maximoff. Definitely down for that. There's a lot of rumors as far as what's going to happen with the character of Wiccan, that he's going to be in this mini-series that will follow the White Vision called Vision Quest, that he's going to be in Young Avengers, that he's going to be in Avengers Secret Wars, and he's going to play a major role in that, basically taking on the role that the Scarlet Witch would have inhabited had she been in it. There are rumors that she's going to be in it, that she's going to be the key for Doom to create this alternate world, battle world. Very much in the same way that she created Westview, Doom is going to manipulate her, or maybe steal her powers, so he can create his own world. And that in trying to make the universe the way it was, they're going to create a new universe. They're going to do a soft reboot, one with a clean timeline that has no alternate worlds, no alternate Earths. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but just lots of rumors about this character. The point is that people are really freaking excited about Wiccan, and right now, Joe Locke proved that he can play this character very, very well, that this character can be very interesting and essential to a story. So no idea what they're going to do, which way they're going to go with him, but whatever it is, I'm looking forward to it. So while I walked into the show not being a big fan of the character, never disliked him, I walked out really enjoying the character and looking forward to anything that they're going to do with this character in the future. So those are my unscripted, unfiltered, uncensored thoughts on Agatha All Along. Also, by the way, the 7th episode, Beth's Hand in Mine, not only was it well received, the episode about Lila, in her journey, in her disjointed, non-linear journey. That episode, the viewership went up because of word of mouth. People kept talking about this episode on social media and YouTube and all over the place, saying how great the episode was. And people actually, on the second day after the episode had premiered, a lot of new people, a lot of viewers came in and watched the episode just to see that one, to see what the all the hubbub was about, and the viewership went up. So the 1st and 7th episode, and then of course numbers haven't come in for the finale, but the 1st and 7th episode had massive viewerships, and that has never happened so far in Disney Plus, to have like one episode somewhere in the middle suddenly get a ridiculous viewership. Usually the viewership drops and it remains steady throughout. And then the finale, of course, usually has a pretty big viewership. Anyway, so just interesting fact about a show that allegedly nobody was going to watch. Anyway, so there you go. Those are my thoughts. Agree, disagree, feel free to say so in the comment section below. But as per usual, please be respectful to one another. There's no reason to fight. We're all on the same team. We can all voice our opinion without being nasty to one another. Okay? Let's be gentlemen and ladies. Anyway, so time for the announcements. Most of you already know this, but I'm going to state it again. For those of you who missed it, my next honest review is going to be on, no shock to anybody, The Legend of Vox Machina Season 3. But furthermore, I'm going to tell you when that review is dropping, and it's dropping on November 13th, Wednesday, November 13th. Furthermore, right now on my Patreon page, I hope you guys have enjoyed my Halloween themed episodes this entire month. So to cap it off, on my Patreon page, I am counting down my top 10 Halloween movie recommendations for you guys to enjoy on this spooky day. So if you want to see that video, but you're not a patron, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/E-Rant and pledge $1. That's it. You pledge $1, you're helping me to continue to produce content, and in return, you get bonus videos. You can't beat that with a wooden stick. So thank you for that continued support. And now one last announcement. A lot of you have been asking about my unscripted videos, about these videos at the end of the month. Apparently, you guys really, really love my E-Rant versus Super Sentai series. You guys love you guys love to hear me talk about the shows that inspired and were adapted into Power Rangers. And have been asking, hey, E-Rant, when's the next one? When are you going to talk about Gingaman or Go-Go 5? Well, I'm going to be talking about both of those next month, at the end of next month, as I am continuing E-Rant versus Super Sentai with Chapter 6. And so, yeah, that video will drop on Thanksgiving week. So I believe November 27th. So Thanksgiving, the Wednesday of Thanksgiving week, I think the day before Thanksgiving. So check your calendars. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the 27th. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for your ongoing support. And I hope that in the end, you get the glory that you deserve at the end of the road.